Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you for the DeKalb County Library System, and we have another nice piece that we're going to make today. I wanted to do something that was a little unisex. I always try to do something that's for guys, but it always ends up being unisex because I know we just keep it, ladies. I know we do. I know I do. And it's going to be, it's one of those things though that you can adapt. If you want to make it look more masculine, you can. If you want to make it look more feminine, you can. It's entirely up to you. But what I'm using today, we're going to be making a bracelet. And I saw something, I saw somebody do, I can't remember her name, and now I feel bad because I should reference it. I saw somebody make a leather bracelet wrapped with little beads. And if anybody can remember or has seen it, please let me know. But it's got leather and beads, and they're wrapped around the leather. And I'm always trying to incorporate other components so that you don't have to make something that's just completely wire. I like to introduce chain, in this case leather, or whatever we can do to kind of mix up our components on our pieces. So today we're going to be doing beaded wire and leather. And ooh, this really shows up blue in this picture, which is great. I'm using 1.5 millimeter leather cord, and it's blue. Wow, it's really turning a bright blue on that picture, but it's actually more of a navy blue than a royal blue. But I'm using this against the backdrop as a backdrop to a lot of natural metal beads. I've got gold, silver, copper, and bronze, little 2 millimeter beads, and I'm going to use for this bracelet. And the other thing that we're going to need are end clamps, these little end clamps that we're going to use to finish the ends, jump rings, open and close jump rings, and these little tubes, it's the only reason we're going to use it is because we're going to be making a barrel knot, and this makes it very easy to do. You don't have to have this little tube, but it's kind of a little hack that makes barrel knots really easy to do. I wish I could think of that lady's name who showed me how to do these on YouTube. So if you get a kit, you'll be getting one of these tubes to help you with your barrel knot. The other things that you're going to need are 20 gauge wire. I'm using bronze to go with my bronze end clamps, and either 24 or 26 gauge wire to do the wrapping for your beads. Either one of those is fine. So let's get going. Oh, you also need round nose pliers, square or chain nose pliers, and cutters. You can option to get a pair of scissors. Oh, I just threw my clamp across the table. You can option to use a pair of scissors to cut your cord, and I'll show you that, or you can just use your cutters to cut the cord. Either one works. I think that is it. And let's get started. If I can get down here to my other camera, where are you? There it is. Okay. Okay, so I'm using leather cord. I have 24 inches of leather cord that I've cut in half so that I have two 12-inch pieces of cord here. I've got 50 of these little metal beads, round metal beads. You can use crystals, you can use any color beads that you want. I'm using 4 millimeter because it works. Bigger than that might be a little clunky. I have open jump rings. I'm using 4 of them. and closed jump rings and these little end clamps. And notice these little guys have teeth on the end, so I don't have to use glue, which I don't care to do. So these have little teeth. And when you clamp them around the end of your leather, they will, the teeth will hold the leather in place, which is really great. This is the little tube that I have. It's just got about a 4mm opening so that when I make my barrel knot, I can slide the leather cord through in order to, well, I'll show you that when we make the knot. Then I got my two sizes of wire, 24 and 20, or 26 and 20. 26 works just as well for the wrapping portion of your program. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is my beads. So I have 2 feet of 24 gauge wire. And what I'm going to do is just make a little bend on the end because I'm going to put my beads on and I don't want them to fall off of one end. So I'm just going to make this little circle on here. Just make a little loop. Doesn't have to be anything formal because it's just to hold your beads on. And then I'm going to put all of my beads on this wire. Straighten that out a little bit so it's not curling up as much. Straighten, straighten, straighten. Oh, well, I guess that's the best it's going to do. All right, so let's put my beads on. And what I want to do, because we're going to design our own clasp. It's that's the one variation I made on this video that I saw, was that we're going to design our own clasp at the end. And for that, we're going to need some of these beads. I've done this before with a different type of bead. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm losing my voice. And people just loved that clasp. So I thought we'd do a different variation of it with more beads that are smaller. So I'm going to take one of each color. I've got rose gold, bronze, gold. I'm going to keep doing that because my voice is going out on me. Copper and silver. I'm going to keep one of each of those to the side. And again, you're going to have 50 beads in your kit. So you want to keep 5 of them out to use later for your clasp. So all I'm going to do is put my beads on at random, and it is truly random. It doesn't have to be any particular order. You can go ahead and give yourself a pattern if you want to, but you will be wrapping these beads around. I thought I had an example. That's right, I took it apart so I can do this. You will be wrapping these beads around, so a pattern isn't going to matter in regard to how the colors come out. And I just want to show you that I'm putting all of my beads on the wire, and what I'm probably going to do is just get these on, and now you can see why I put that little circular loop in the end, just so that these wouldn't fall off. Anyway, I'm going to get all my beads on. I'm going to keep talking for as long as I think I will be keeping you entertained so that you're not bored watching me put all these beads on. You can pick them up and put them on, or you can just find the little hole and slide them on. One of the really neat things about these beads is when you lay them out on your mat, or if you're using a bead board or whatever you're laying them out on, the little holes a lot of times will point up, so that all you have to do is stab your wire inside of it and slide them on. Instead of trying to pick them up, find the hole, avoid your fingers, and put them on. Sometimes it's a little easier to do it this way instead. So How can I entertain you while I put 45 beads on a piece of wire? Should I sing? No, that would scare you and all of the dogs in the neighborhood away. So I won't do that. So I guess I'll just keep up a little bit of chatter. Don't know what I'm going to say. What I think I'm going to do is go ahead, put you out of your misery, and do the rest of these off camera and come back, and voila, it will all be strung. How's that for an idea? Think that's a good one? I do, except for one little thing. I like chatting. I like chattering, even if it's just to my camera or to myself, which I know sounds very strange, but there you have it. That is just me. So what I'm going to do, so as not to bore you any further, is I'm going to go ahead and put these on the wire off camera, even though we're almost there, almost finished. And did you notice that I'm not putting them on in any order? See, just no order at all. Just putting them on as they come. So let me finish up this last few off camera. I will be back and we'll continue to the next part of our program. Back in a flash. Okay, I've got all of my beads on my cord here, and now it's time to do a little bit of wrapping them around into my tube. So what I'm going to do is just take my little tube here, and I want to wrap my beads around in a circle. So I'm just going to give myself a few beads here, and I'm going to wrap them nice and tight around my cord. And I want to make sure that the beads are nice and close together. You don't want a lot of gaps in between the beads on your wire. So let's do that. So I'm just pushing the beads down, pushing them nice and close together as I wrap, then slide some more beads down and wrap them around. Just push them on there. Slide some more beads down. Oops, look at that, it came out the end. Oh, let's see. You know what? I'm going to go the other direction. No, I'm not. Just have to be careful because now my beads are coming off. What a pain in the neck that is. So I'm going to go ahead and just put them back on here because there's no way to feed them on as you wrap. So you have to kind of put them on and then try to make sure that they don't come off the other end. Probably the best way to do that is to make another circle on the other end, which is what I should have done and didn't. Virginia. Anyway, let's put these few beads back on. Get on there. One ran away from me, that's okay. One bead isn't going to make or break. All right, so now I'm just going to make a little circle on the end so that doesn't happen again. Just make another little circle and I don't have to worry about them falling off. All right, so back to my wrapping. Just hold on to those. Slide some more beads down my wire. Okay, and continue to wrap. Nice and tight with those beads. When I say tight, I don't mean you need to make them tight around this little thing that you're wrapping around. Oh, and by the way, you do not have to use this little thing that we're using here. This is mainly what I'm going to use to make your barrel knot. but you can use any thin, narrow, cylindrical item. You can use, what else can you use? You can use anything like a knitting needle, the size of a knitting needle, a chopstick, anything like that. But these, I'm using it for something else, so I figured you may as well go ahead and use it. Why not? And it's going to be in your kit, so you may as well use it. And slide that out a little bit so I have a little bit more of my tube to wrap around. I figure you may as well utilize what you have. If you have a knitting needle or a crochet needle or something that's a nice thin cylindrical item that you can wrap around, hey, go for it. Okay, keep wrapping, 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 wrapping. Okay, so now I have my beads all nicely wrapped in a little tube. So I'm going to take my tube out, hold on to my beads so that they don't get unfurled. They're all nicely wrapped. And I can just put that to the side over here. Ta-da! Neat, huh? Nice little tube. Okay, so now I'm going to make my first barrel knot. So what I'm going to do, again, I have two 12-inch pieces of cord here. I'm going to go about 2.5 inches away from the end and make sure that my ends are even. Go down about 2.5 inches. And I'm going to make my first knot. And here's where my little tube comes in again. I'm going to slide that in between the two pieces of cord. And I'm going to wrap the one furthest from me around the little tube and around the other piece of cord one time, 2 times, and it depends on the size you want your wire to be. I'm going to give it 3 wraps. I mean, the size you want your knot to be. I'm going to give it 3 wraps. So one more time around. And then I'm going to take the one that I was wrapping and I'm going to feed it through my little tube, the back of my little tube, where the ends are sticking out here. That's where I want to feed that piece of cord. Just feed that through what I'm calling the back until it pokes out the other end, and then take the cord away, holding on to my knot, and just pull it until it's kind of snug. And if you see that one of your ends is longer than the other, just pull it until it evens out so that both of your ends are the same. Now, I don't want to pull this completely tight just yet, but I am going to pull it kind of snug to get my knot situated here. Almost pulled it out again. Get back there. Let's tighten that up just a little bit. There we go. Just enough so that it won't move. So there's my little knot. And that's where this little guy comes in very handy. And I'm going to show you that again. It's easier than wrapping it around your finger and then trying to hold on to it and then stick it back through there and it'll come loose. This little thing makes it so easy. And she is ingenious for thinking of that. Anyway, so now we're going to introduce our beads to our leather. So all I need to do is slide my cord through the middle of my beads where I wrapped it. And you can put both of them through at the same time, or you can do one at a time. I'm going to slide this one through first. Through there. It's right through the center where it was wrapped. And I'm going to slide the other one through. And the reason I'm doing it one at a time, because one of your cords will be longer than the other because you wrapped one around the other. So one of them is going to be shorter. The one that you wrapped is going to be shorter. Get that through there. So now it's all the way through my little tube of beads. Okay, there we go. That kind of got caught in there. Come out, come out, come out. There. And if you need to kind of twist them around to make sure they're as snug as you want them, you can do that. You can make some adjustments. So now what I need to do is take the one end closest to the knot, take that end of wire and wrap it around nice and close to the knot, as close as I can get to that knot, just to hold it in place. So I'm going to wrap it around about 3 times. Okay, and then I'm going to push my beads up nice and close. There, and just tighten my knot so that it hides that wire. Then I'm going to clip off that end of wire. Just clip it nice and close to the cord. And then I'm going to push down that little end so that it's not sticking up and it won't catch on anything. So there we go. And I'm going to scoop my beads up nice and close to my knot and hide that little tail of wire that I wrapped around there. Neat, huh? And then I can just adjust it so that it's as tight as I want it to be. And the beads look the way I want. If I want them spread out a little bit more, I can do that. I can spread them out. I can push them together so that they're nice and so it's nice and full. It's entirely up to you what look you want. So there we go. So now I'm going to wrap the other side around my wire. I mean, around my cord. So I'm going to just do that again, wrap it around once, twice, 3 times or 4 times, or as many times as you're comfortable with, just enough to keep it from coming off the end. Then I can clip it. Get rid of that tail. Right. Get over there. There we go. Get rid of that tail and push down that little tiny end close to the wire, close as I can get. There. So there we go. That's on there. And now it's time to make my other knot. So what I'm going to do is take that long end, because one's going to be longer than the other one, because this is the one that you wrapped around on the other side. So let's take this long end and we're going to make our other barrel knot. So again, we're going to take our little tube, slide it in between the two pieces of cord. Take the long one. I like to keep it away from me and wrap towards me. So take that long cord that's the furthest away from me, wrap it once around my little tube here and twice. Now, let me make sure that you can see what I'm doing, because I'm going to wrap it once around the tube and the other piece of cord, and then I'm going to wrap it again, going back towards my hand that's holding the tube. So I'm going that way, back towards my hand and back towards the beads. And then one more time, because I wrapped 3 times on the last one. And then I'm going to grab my knot and feed the tail end of my cord through the tube closest to the beads. Feed that through my tube until it comes out the other side. And then take the tube off. Pull that short tail. And adjust my knot. And just pull it until it's nice and snug. I'm just tightening up my knot. And I hope that you could see what I was doing. I am tempted to take this loose. There's my knot. And I'm going to pull the camera down a little bit and show it to you again, because it's one of those things that's really easy to do. But you want to make sure you get it right. So again, I have my long tail of cord. Let's get this down a little bit closer. There's my long tail of cord. I'm going to take my tube, slide it in between the 2 pieces of cord, right there near the beads. Holding on to that, just like that. I'm going to wrap the long tail of cord around the tube and the other tail of cord one time, and then I'm going to wrap it again, and again I'm going back towards my beads and my hand that's holding the beads. That's twice. Oops. Come on, come on, come on. Oops, let's do it again. Put my tube in. When I'm trying to do it and talk, when I can just do, it's much easier. So anyway, tube in, long tail of cord, wrap it around my tube and the other piece of leather. 1 time, 2 times, and 3 times. Put that tail through the tube at the back. Push it through until it comes out the other end. And then slide the tube off. And then adjust your knot. Slide it back as close as you can get to the beads and adjust it. Pull the cord until it's nice and tight. And once you do that, it'll cover up the wrapping of my wire. Let's get it nice and snug. And I see a little bit of wire poking out here. because this wire is very, very soft. I can just push that down in there to where it doesn't show. And adjust the beads over it. Make sure I've got a nice tight knot here. And there we go. And then you can make some adjustments if you need to. And remember I said that it's very random how you put the beads on? This is why. It doesn't have any particular pattern. And it depends. You can use all one color. You can use several different colors. You can use 2 colors, hide colors like I did. It's entirely up to you. Isn't that neat? So this is going to be our bracelet. That's kind of awesome. A little bit more. Okay, so now from here, little piece of wire sticking up. Go, 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 go. Okay, so from here, now we need to take some measurements because it depends on the size of your wrist as far as how big you want this to be, of course. So for instance, in my case, 7.5 inches. And I know that my clasp is going to take up some space, and so are my clamps. They're going to add length, and so are my jump rings. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to measure just yet, but right now I have a good 9 inches. I'm going to cut some off of the ends, of course, because they're not even. So I'm going to make that adjustment. But I wanted to show you that your embellishment here, your little focal piece, is a good almost 2 inches, about 1.75 inches from end of knot to end of knot. Yeah, almost 1.7 inches. So there's the end of the knot. There's the other end of the knot. Yeah, about 1.7 inches. So what I'm going to do is put this to the side, and we're going to go ahead and make our clasp. Then we're going to measure and put everything together. So for this, we need 20 gauge wire. And I'm going to take 5 of these beads and incorporate them into my clasp. And it's going to be a clasp hook. So these 5 beads measure about 3/4 inch side to side, and we're going to be wrapping them, which means it's going to push it out to maybe 7/8 to 1/8 of an inch, just for that. So I'm going to give myself 4 inches to make sure I have enough wire. So I'm cutting off 4 inches of 20 gauge wire. And I'm going to put my beads on, and we're going to wrap each one. Now remember all of that 24 gauge wire that I cut off of here. This is where you can use it. It is not going to waste. So the first thing I'm going to do is go down about 1/3 of the way down my wire. About 1/3. So I'm going to give myself about 1.5 inches on each side, I guess. It's about 4 inches. It's a little over 4 inches. So I'm going to go to the middle, which would be 2, and then scoot that over 1/3. So I'm going to give myself 1.5 inches on the end, and I'm going to put a wrap on my wire. So I'm going to take my 24 gauge wire, and I'm going to wrap it around my 20 gauge. 3 times. That's plenty. 1, 2, and 3. So I've got a nice little wrap here. And I'm going to feed my first bead on. It's entirely up to you which order you put them in. I've got a gold one and a rose gold, so I think I'll put those on the end so they're not side by side. So I'm going to slide this one bead on. Oops, I'm going to slide this one bead on the 20 gauge, wire, Virginia. So I'm going to slide the gold bead on the 20 gauge wire. I'm going to bring the 24 gauge wire around the gold bead, just wrap it over the side, and then wrap that around the 20 gauge wire again, 1 time and a half. Then I'm going to introduce my next bead, which in this case is going to be my bronze. And then I'm going to bring the wire over top of that bead. And I'm going to wrap it around the 20 gauge post again, 1 and a half times. Then I'm going to take the silver and I'm going to put that on. Now, this is my pattern. It doesn't have to be yours. This is what I'm doing. And then I'm going to bring that 24 gauge wire over the silver bead and wrap it around my 20 gauge post again, 1 and a half times. See where I'm going with this? So I have a nice little wrap. See if I can get it up there where you can see it. It's hopefully not too blurry. Come on. Come on, you wanna focus for me, please. Please. Wow, it really doesn't want to. But I've got it wrapped on here. Let's see if I try this one more time. Okay, you'll have to be a little further away because it doesn't like me today. If we get a little more light, let's try that. Is that better? I hope so. Sometimes I look back at this and it's like you're just holding it up there. They still can't see it. It focuses a little and then it goes back out. Anyway, I've got it wrapped around there and I'm going to introduce another bead. In this case, it's going to be the copper one. And I'm going to bring my wire over the bead. Over the side of the bead. And I'm going to wrap it around my post 1 and a half times. And you can do this 1 and a half times, 2 times, 3 times. It just depends on how much space you want in between each of your beads. I just don't want a lot of space because I don't want this to be extra, extra, extra long. And my last bead is going to be my rose gold. Bring that wire over and wrap it around the post again. And on the end, the other end, I wrapped it around 3 times. So I'll do the same thing here. So that's 1, 2, and 3. So that's nicely wrapped. So that's going to be the center of our clasp. So now I'm going to cut off my little ends. Let's cut that off. And push it down nice and close to my post here. Go to the other one and cut that off. I like to kind of hyperextend it a little bit, take it around a little bit so it has a little bit of a curve when I cut it off, so that when I push it down, it's already going in the direction of my post. Here we go. So now I'm going to straighten this out a little bit. And make the hooks of my clasp. Now we have 5 nicely wrapped beads on there. Yeah. And what I want to do is cut down the end, cut it down to 1 inch from my wrap. 1 inch from the tail of my wrap here. So there we go. Just give it an inch. Oops, get back here. Do the same on the other side. Give it an inch. And again, I'm going from the very end of my wrap. Let me straighten that out a little more. Nice and straight. So I have a good, accurate measurement. I can't cut with my square pliers, Virginia. Cut that off. And make a mark. Okay. Yes. So now we're going to make a shepherd's hook. It's going to be kind of a decorative S-clasp. So what I want to do is take the tip, get all of these other distractions out of the way. All right, so I'm going to take the tip of my round nose pliers and grab the tip of my wire. And I'm going to make the tiniest of loops. I'm only going to go 3/4 of the way around. Just 3/4 of the way, like so. There we go. And then I'm going to take my square pliers, or my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to squeeze from the tip, this tip down here where it's open, to the top. I'm going to kind of squeeze that closed, or as tight as I can get it, down to a little nub. Like that. And then I'm going to take my pliers, a little bit. I'm going to slide it all the way down to the back of my pliers. In fact, you know what? This looks a little longer than I want because I really don't want that big a hook. Yeah, no, that's good. Yes. So I'm going to slide it all the way down, the wire all the way back to the very back of my pliers. And pliers are not all created equal. They're not all, this is the size that I want because I want a nice substantial shepherd's hook. So I'm going to go back to the very back of my pliers so I can get a good loop. So here is what I call the bottom. The bottom is where the opening is in my loop, and the top is where the long flat edge is. So I'm going to slide my wire down to the back of my pliers. Here's the bottom where the loop is. And I'm going to turn my pliers in the direction of where the long wire is, or the top. I'm just going to turn my pliers just turn it until I have a nice little shepherd's hook, like so. Isn't that the cutest thing? Then I'm going to go to the other side and I'm going to do the same thing. Now I want this one to go in the other direction. This one's this direction, this one goes the opposite. So I'm going to make my tiny little loop again. And that little loop is going to be going in the direction of the loop that's on the other one. Let's make my little loop. Remember, you're just going 3/4 of the way around. Grab that little tip, and it's going to fight you because it's a tip. The tip on the tip of the pliers on the tip of the wire is a challenge. That's why I put my finger there, because it helps steady it. Gives me a little leverage. Just going to go 1/4 of the way around again, like so. Take my flat pliers and squeeze the bottom towards the top of my loop. Make a little nub like that, just like that. And the reason I do that is because you want it as tiny as possible, and even the tiniest tip will not make the loop this small. So that's why we want to pinch it down to a nub. So now I want to make my other shepherd's hook. So I'm going to go back in, slide my wire all the way back to the back of my pliers. Again, I have the opening as my bottom and the flat edge as the top. I'm going to wrap it around away from the bottom towards the top of my, towards the top of my other hook. So here's the bottom. See if I can show you. Here's the bottom. There's the top. Slide it down to the back of my pliers. Wrap it away from the bottom of my little loop all the way to the wrapping of my beads. And there's my other shepherd's hook. So there we go. There is our little hook. And what I'm going to do to make it a little more graceful looking is I'm going to bend it back right here, just at the top of my wrap. I'm going to give it a little bit of a bend so it has a nice little graceful curve there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side so that it's not leaning, so that it looks like a little swan's neck right here at the top of my wrap. I'm just going to bend it back just a little bit. And I always like to pinch this down so that my loop is resting right against my wrap where my beads are. There we go. And there's my loop and my hook. Neat, huh? That's going to be my clasp. Now the neat part about this is I can bend it a little bit so that it conforms with the shape of my wrist. If you leave it just straight, it's just going to stick out. But you want to make it a little bit curved so it fits the curve of your wrist, like that. Now, the reason I said we weren't going to cut this yet is because this is so long. It's going to be a good at least 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches long. And that's going to take up that amount of space on the measurement of your bracelet. See, 1 3/4 inches is the size of my clasp, my decorative clasp, which is going to be just as decorative as the front of my bracelet. Okay, so now we need to decide how big we want this to be. I'm going for a 7.5 inch wrist, which means I need another 1/4 of an inch to half an inch in order to have a little ease on my bracelet so that it's not too clampy. So what I'm going to do, this centerpiece is again 1 3/4 inches. My clasp is 1 3/4 inches. So that's how much? 1, 2, 3.5 inches by itself. So I need another 4 inches. And then my jump rings and my clamps are going to add the other 1/2 inch that I need to make it 8 inches. So, and the other thing that you can do is if you want to make a little chain, you can just use more jump rings. It's entirely up to you, but I'm going to be using 2 open jump rings on my clamp and then another closed jump ring on either side to hook my clasp in. So all of that adds some length. So what I'm going to do here is kind of get an idea of what I have. So with all of that added on, that's going to be about 2 1/4 inches. So that's 2 1/4. This is 1 3/4. So that's, what did I say? 2 1/4, 3, 4 inches right there. Let's see if I'm right. Yes, that's 4 inches. So I need about 2 inches on each side in order to give me my 8. So I'm going to cut 2 inches on each side of my knot. And again, if you cut too big, you can always cut more off. If you cut too small, you can use your jump rings and make a chain. So either way, you're going to be just fine. So let's do this. So I'm going to cut this down to 2 inches just past my knot. Here's where my scissors or my cutters come in. So I've got my 2 inches here. Make sure they're even. One's a little longer than the other. Let's fix that. Just a tiny bit. Let's even that out. And then 2 inches on the other side. Get off of there. My jump ring wants to stick. Okay, so here we have that. So I have 6 inches. Scoot up there. There we go. And it's time to introduce my clamps. Let's move all of this excess stuff out of the way here. So I'm going to take my clamps. Even that out a little bit. Here we go. So I'm going to take my little clamp, and these little clamps again have little teeth on them. It's really neat. All I need to do is slide it over my 2 pieces of cord and squeeze it. I don't squeeze it completely closed until I'm sure that my cords are nicely centered in the middle. And nicely ensconced in between the ends of my clamp. And then I squeeze it down nice and neat. And then I take my flat pliers, chain nose, flat nose. I would not use the round nose because they can put a little dent in the center. You want something that's flat, just like the clamp itself. And then you squeeze it. Take another look and make sure it looks good. And then squeeze it the rest of the way. I like to give it several squeezes just to make sure it's nice and tight. There we go. I love these little clamps. They're awesome. Let's go to the other side and do the same thing. Nice and even. Grab my clamp, slide it on. Make sure that the tails are both down in there. Nice and snug. Squeeze it. Check it out. Make sure that they're centered nicely. Take my pliers and clamp it down so that the teeth grab the leather. Again, I like to give it several good squeezes so that I can make sure that it's nice and tight. There we go. Now all I need to do is put on my jump rings. Now again, I'm using 2 open jump rings on each end and then attaching those to 1 closed jump ring on each end. And I do 2 because I like the extra security of having more than 1 jump ring. So I'm going to show you the proper way to open your jump rings, and that's very simple. I'll just take a pair of pliers, find the opening in my jump ring. In this case, it's right here. I'm going to grab the jump ring on one side of the opening, take my thumb on the other side of the opening, and push down. So now it's open. And it's going to be really easy to close it back up again. Let's do it again. I'm going to show you a second way to do it. There's the opening. Grab one side with the pliers. Now I'm going to grab a second set of pliers. Go to the other side, grasp it, and twist. And again, I have a nice open jump ring. I haven't altered my circle, which is what you do if you pull it apart, then you ruin your circle. You don't want to do that. So now that I've got my jump rings open and I've already opened the other 2, I'm going to attach it to my clamp. Go ahead and put that on there. And I'm going to go ahead and put my closed jump ring on. And I'm going to close it up. Nice and neat. Make sure the edges are firmly together. Nicely meeting and closed. And I'm going to grab my second jump ring, second open jump ring. I like to make a focus. And I'm going to slide that on my clamp, the loop of my clamp, and then through my closed jump ring, again, avoiding this other one. You don't want to catch your 2 open jump rings. You don't want to tangle them up. You just want to go through the clamp and the closed jump ring with each of your open jump rings. And close that up, make sure it's tightly closed. And that's one side. Let's go do the other side. Grab one of the open jump rings. Where's my other closed? There it is. It moved away from me because I pushed it out of the way. Grab my other open jump ring, slide it on my clamp. add my closed jump ring. Close that open jump ring up. Very nice. Grab my other open jump ring. Slide that on my clamp. And slide it through my closed jump ring, making sure not to get caught in the open one. Close that up. Make sure it's nice and separate from the other one, and that the ends are nicely tucked together. So there we go. Now all that's left to do is attach my clasp. And I love this kind of clasp, this fancy schmancy S clasp, because it doesn't matter which side you put it on, because it's a separate piece. So whether you're right-handed or left-handed, it does not matter. It just slides on both sides. I'm going to slide that down in my one side of my ring. Go to the other ring. Slide that on. And there we have it. And then you want to shape it a little bit so that it fits your wrist the way you want. And there you go. There's your bracelet. Isn't that neat? Isn't that awesome? I can shape it a little bit more. Shape that a little bit more. And again, it's unisex because you can shape it. And you can use whatever beads you like. So it can be a little bit more masculine or feminine, however you want it. Isn't that the neatest thing? So easy, so simple, so nice. The leather's nice and malleable too. So there we go. There's our bracelet. And if you don't want as wide a clasp, you just don't have to put as many beads on. It's up to you. It's up to you how you want it to look. But there we go. There's the front. There's the back. Either way you look at it, it's pretty. I should put it on. But that's it. That's our piece for today. There's my bracelet. And there's the clasp. Pretty on both sides. I love this. Now see how this looked in the other camera, this looked like it was bright, bright blue. In this camera, it looks closer to the real color, which is kind of a navy. There we go. There it is. That's what we've done today, children. Didn't get to the, trying to get to the other camera. There it is. Straighten it up. There we go. There's the other side. It's hard to show it without twisting my wrist all out of place. There we go. Let's move this camera. Move. So there's my clasp. There's my bracelet. Move it down a little bit. It's a little less shaky. I like it. Yay. Okay. So anyway, oh my goodness, look at that lipstick. I put this on. It's one of those that changes color as your mood shifts. And now it's really, really, really bright red, but whatever. I can do the dumbest stuff on camera. Anyway, that's our piece for today. I hope you liked it. And I hope you'll play with this because I just use metal beads on it, but you can use any beads that you want. And go ahead and play with different things like metal with wire and cord and chain and all of that, because that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to do it a few more times before I get back to all wire, which I may never do because I'm having fun with this. But that's our piece for today. Hope you liked it. Hope you will give us some feedback and let us know what you thought of the video, what you think of this piece. I hope you'll make the piece and show us, please show us what you made. We like to see pictures so that we know how you did with it. And if you get a chance, post it on the library Facebook page. If you have any questions or would like to make some suggestions of things that you would like to see in the future, please email me at jewelrygen20@gmail.com. Wait, jewelrygen20@gmail.com. That's JEWELRYGIN 20@gmail.com, or go ahead and put pictures on the library Facebook page, or you can email me the pictures so that I can see what you've done and ask me any questions, give me any suggestions, any feedback, good or bad. I want to hear it. I just want to hear from you. I miss you guys. It's been 2 years since I've done an in-person class and I am chomping at the bit. So please have a good week. Have a good weekend. And until next time, see you later.